feel uncomfortable.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm good. Real quick, do you want me to look at you or in the camera?
Okay. Setting up the shot. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, I started TBH, like, saying TBH ironically because a friend of mine would say it and I, like, made fun of her. And then I actually started saying it, and now I can't stop. So, that's how I've been.
In that case, they know that someone... Mom, I'm doing an interview!
For myself and just came back from Montreal, so I've got nothing. But if you want some like cucumbers and hummus, I could do cucumbers and hummus.
Alright. Which should be, you should include a clip where I'm just like, oh, do you have the time?
How are you? How you been?
What?
I picked 4 techniques. I'm doing Uta Hagen's, Strasbourg, Stanislavski, and Meisner. I'm pretty sure those are the ones I picked. And then I'm taking As You Like It, which is why we have the reading for tomorrow. And we're basically going through, and I picked 4 characters. So I picked Phoebe, Rosalind, Orlando, and Jacques. His name is Jacques. There's an S. Anyway, and basically there's like a month, there's 2 months basically I've allotted to each one where I look at a method, then I look at the play only like focusing on that character but using that like method, aka I kind of pretend as if I don't know the play and I'm just like approaching it for the first time, and then basically I've just been writing down like what I think about each technique, like what works for me, what doesn't, stuff like that. So right now, like I did Uta Hagen and I did Phoebe already, and then right now I'm doing Rosalind and Stanislavski.
Well, at first I wanted to do a project on like collaboration and the different types of collaboration and like kind of understanding other people's art forms, and that turned out to be a really big project, and so it kind of went from that just to a smaller project of writing a play.
So I am doing a series of interviews, which is a series of interviews with actors and directors, exploring the value of education and the development and personal process of actors. So the end result is I'm going to build a website that I'm hoping will be used as a resource for my peers. Basically this stems out of me being given opportunities by mentors such as Aaron Brubaker and Cara Spooner, who have allowed me into like professional settings, and I've got to sit in a lot of rehearsal rooms and listen to professionals talk. And then I realized that when I came back, I go to an arts-based high school, so being in my drama class at school and realizing that nobody else was getting these opportunities and how much that sucks. So I kind of wanted this to be an opportunity for my peers to kind of just hear the vocabulary that these people are using and kind of get an insight as to what is going on in the city right now in terms of theatre and in terms of actors.
I wanted to create this project that features a lot of different mediums because I feel like I want to be like, not like who I am for known, but I wanted to try something that was like not something like, okay, not named before that's already been like done. I want to do something that's just been like, okay, like they're like that person was that creative to do something that is this, but it's not like oh they did a play or they did something like that. It's like just something that you can't even name right now because it probably doesn't exist.
Well, I've been doing this for a while before the project, before Meg nominated me, and when she did and I talked to Kara and Aaron, I was like, ooh, I should do a gallery because that's what I've always wanted to do. And I was doing portraits before of people I know, like my friends and families.
I am, at this point, I'm curating an exhibit, an art exhibit. Or actually, I'd prefer to just say an exhibit. But I have been, it's basically an art exhibit.
So what I'm working towards now is just a collection of characters, really.
And I think that's sort of a stepping stone, and I think that once those are done, I may use them for something. I don't really know what, but I think that's what I'm focusing on for now. That's what I'm doing for this, and that's hopefully what my finished product will be, just a collection of characters, which, I don't know, it excites me more than a play somehow.
The first time that we all met up and talked about our projects, I think I came in and I wasn't quite sure what it was. And so at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna do some illustrations. And then people started talking about their stuff and I was like, oh man, I gotta step this up a little bit. And I was like, I'll make a film about different characters and it'll be like short shots, and it'll be kind of exploring how much of a story you can tell in just one shot. And then that changed when I realized how much work it would be and how much I was procrastinating. And now it's kind of a little bit similar. I'm just trying to capture this sort of specific feeling, and at this point it's more of just like I said, yes, just like a video diary. And yeah, it's just shots that I think are cool, and a lot of it is just working on getting different angles and trying out some new stuff with filming.
We're I'd say like a lot of artists, like we're kind of going for a feeling really. We're trying to build an environment, and hopefully with the pieces on the wall, the projections, whatever it will be, maybe sculptures, we're just trying to emulate this feeling. I guess you could say outer body experience, for lack of a better term, really. But just kind of like an existential view, like perspective. Yeah.
So far, my process has included me figuring out what questions will get the most direct answers, and will delve deepest into the subject matter that I'm exploring. So that took a while, just like formulating questions that would be worthwhile asking. And then after that, I had to start brainstorming people who I was interested in interviewing. So I did come up with a list of that for those people. And then the hardest bit has been doing my first few interviews, because I guess technically I've actually done 3. One was very informal, but loosening up to it and figuring out what makes a good interview and what makes a bad interview. And I did not realize how hard it is, but it's so hard. So how I've been doing is I'll pick the person that I'm about to interview, and then get in touch with them obviously and include them, disclose with them what the project is about. And then I'll refer to these questions that I made earlier on in the process and figure out which ones are most applicable to them. The interviews then they've been running about 20 minutes, but I'm now realizing that because I want to edit them down to 20 minutes, I need to do more interview so that then I can use the best of the interview to get 20 minutes, whereas now it's 20 minutes of whatever I have. And sometimes that involves rambling and back and forth. I've also learned a lot from hearing myself back during interviews. For example, I encourage on my subject. So I was talking to Brendan Gall, and I was so excited that this was happening. So during his answers, I kept saying like, yes, and of course, and blah, blah, but when you hear that back, that sounds like I'm interrupting him, which was not my intention. So I'm now realizing that I have to cut that out completely.
I was just kind of sitting around bored one day, and then I just started acting things out because that's just what I do. And there's this thing that I kept coming back to, and I couldn't really figure out what it was about. But after a while, I sort of came up with the idea of like this group of friends fighting over something at someone's funeral, and then it sort of came from there. So it was like kind of like some weird improving by yourself thing.
But I changed my style throughout the whole process by not only using watercolor but using pens and like just changing my style a bit. But other than that, it's the same since the beginning. I changed my style because I just got bored, and it was I wanted to show people like different things, like, and styles that I can do, like what different things I can do. So yeah, I didn't want people to get bored either with the show.
When I first started the project, I actually plotted out the 12 months and did a different character's different monologue from a different play with a different method for each month. And Aaron wrote me back and was like, I think that's too much. Which is great because I'm already behind schedule and I've only done one technique and I'm on my second. But then after I cut that all down, basically, I started with Uta Hagen. Actually, I kind of like cheated, not really, but the end of my last year in drama, we looked a little bit at Uta Hagen, so I kind of was a little familiar, so that was like good. So I'd seen some videos with her. But what I did for both Stanislavski and Uta Hagen, I kind of started looking more into like their methods, like, you know, who they were, why they, you know, did what they did, and then I spent the first month probably looking at their methodologies, and then the second month actually applying that to the play, like the monologues and what that meant to me. And I've just been working like every Sunday because I started out trying to make it like vague and be like, oh, I'm gonna do it on a Wednesday, or it doesn't really matter, and that it just didn't happen. And then Stanislavski, his book is like $30, so I've done a lot of like reading of commentary on his books and like actors' thoughts on his books, and yeah, just various like analyses of it in an effort to avoid it. But I probably will end up buying the book in the end.
I'd like to think that I have writer's block, but I don't know. I don't know if it's. I also don't like to think that I'm lazy. I mean, I am sometimes, but I don't think it's always laziness. I think I sort of have a tendency to sort of strive for perfection, and when I create something that isn't perfect in my eyes, I'm unhappy with it, which is pretty much all the time because nothing is ever perfect. So I think that also is part of the reason that I find it difficult to find motivation sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, like I want this to be good. What if it's not good? So I just don't do it. So yeah.
Well, I know that, I mean, when I think of like working, I usually go straight to like my artwork. I mean, I like, you know, visiting studios. I don't know. I've always had because at my school they have like sort of open studios for the sort of the classrooms for the art department are just big studios. So people will just work at school. I don't really like working at school. I really like having like my own space, which is why mainly when I work on my own artwork, it's in my room or at my house. Just because I like getting out, but I don't like being like holed up in there. But it's like, I don't know. I think I really don't. It's just nice to have my own space. So I guess it's awfully nice that all these artists have like let me into their space and like see what they're working on. Because you know, there's like in a studio, it's like a very the studio is very representative of the person sometimes. But yeah, I know. I like from a working standpoint. I like when I make artwork recently too, because I find that in the last like 2 years, like I've had like really a hard time like making work. So, like as an artist, I've been going back to those like. I think I've stepped back and said, well, this sort of this. I said to myself, I really need to have a system for making work, even before I have a system for when I'm going to work, because sometimes I find myself having not made something for like a long time. So before I even fundamentally like saying to myself, whoa, we're gonna work on this day, like we're gonna do this day. I like to have like a system for actually doing the work, like what I'm doing.
So we both worked on two separate disciplines of the show. I focused more on the visuals, Liam focused more on the audio. So collaboration happened all the time, but there was like a clear separation of work happening, where I would go home and do all the editing for the footage, and Liam go home and edit all the audio, and we'd bounce it back towards each other.
I think the best thing that we collaborated on was the concept and our conceptual reasoning of what it's going to become. So we were both behind the image and the idea,
And the themes.
and then we went away and then agreed with ourselves, because if you disagree,
So it's just as independent as it was collaborative.
I thought that I would do film because I did a year of film in school just recently, and it was like really cool, but I am hopeless at actually setting up cameras and editing and stuff, so I thought that this would be a good way to practice, like, first off, like working with cameras again and editing and stuff, but also practice really understanding what a shot can mean and how you're setting it up and what that does for a narrative, especially in a film where there isn't a narrative. Because for our film class we have to write like scripts and think about, you know, getting as many shots as possible to show that we understand the material that we're learning. But I thought this would be like an exercise in kind of the freedom of being able to film whatever you want without having to do it for a mark in class. So I thought it would be cool, and yeah.
Process-based work where there isn't a kind of concrete thing that you're working towards is really hard because it sort of just feels like it floats away, and so that's been tricky. Also, scheduling 10 teenagers is really tricky.
Getting 10 people in the room at the same time, 12,
Yeah.
12 people in the room at the same time, that's been probably the single hardest thing and very frustrating. But I think that there are things that we've learned that we will now know moving forward, which is what are the things that maybe seem obvious or evident that you actually have to put right front and center.
Yeah.
Which is that, like, even though you're all doing all these individual projects, even though Here's How You Listen contains 10 distinct projects, each of those projects exists also in service of the other 9 projects and in service of the other 9 artists. And so you have to show up even if it's not about you. And I think now, months later down the road, everyone in the collective understands that. And I think we sort of took it as a bit of a given that we've been learning how to articulate that and how to hear it back to us after time has passed.
The intention of having Crit Day was to practice seeing other people's work, talking about their work, and supporting each other. And so in hearing about how someone else's process is developing and questioning that and being supportive of that, you learn through their process, through hearing about it, through seeing the development. And I also think that in showing the work as it's developing, it becomes less precious. That you're not holding on to something very, very tight and not wanting to reveal it until it's perfect. It's just putting it all on the table and saying, this is where I am and this is where I want to go and how do I do that and what do you see when you look at this. So tell me what happened.
I was overwhelmed. I am in a sort of challenging program at school, and so right from the start of the school year there was a lot to do. And while I had all of this homework and stuff to do, I also had to balance that with producing something, making something that I liked, and everything that I had been producing I didn't like, but because of school I didn't have time to put into it and to transform it into something I did like.
I find that even more so than concepts, it is the process is valuable to like how to fit them all together, even when I guess aesthetically they look so different. So that I guess that's is one good thing about curating something about process, is that I mean, even though in the end, like, I do want to make sure that things do sort of look somewhat like they work together, you know, it's not like, I don't know, neon colors with like black and white, but there is sort of a fundamental connection between all of them that I can look at and use to my advantage.
I don't know, I've never done anything like this in a gallery or with a collective, you know, outside of school. So it's really exciting, and with the idea that I started out with, I'm happy where I took it. I don't know if this is like the best thing I've ever done in film. It's certainly not something that I do a lot. Montage is not my favorite of the types of film that one can do, but I don't know, it was really interesting for me to do it on my own and outside of school. And I'm happy with where I took it and where it's ended up. I really like some of the shots. Some of them are nah.
So, a few months ago when we were picking our dates for the project, I was at the point where basically I realized I was only going to do 3 techniques and 3 monologues. And Janelle wanted 3 presentations of her script, and so it just lined up really perfectly. And then as time went on, I changed it to being only 2 techniques and 2 monologues. So what ended up happening was we cut it down to only being 2 days, but Erin had a brilliant idea of, instead of just doing 1 monologue on one day and one on the other day, giving everyone else in the room a chance to directly contrast them and giving me a more clear view from what the audience saw. He's a pretty youth, not very pretty, and sure, he is proud, yet his pride becomes him. He'll make a proper man. The best thing in him is his complexion, for faster than his tongue to make offense, his eye. Without Here's How You Listen, I don't think I ever would have tried this out, which I would have lost out on because I'm not going to theater school, so I wouldn't have had that opportunity to try these techniques, and I think that would have seriously disadvantaged me, not just in the acting world, but just in the realm of being a person who wants to be involved in the arts.
People didn't have immediate, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. I don't know why I thought it would be so negative, but they understood what it was about and it spoke to them, which I didn't know if it would. You know, you don't know that when you're just sitting in your room writing it yourself, if it actually makes sense or if it actually speaks to someone. So that was surprising.
I'm not a big fan of change, and going to university changes everything. Like, what if none of my friends talk to me after graduation? Then it's like losing 5 friends in 1 year.
It was just a great experience. It kind of gives a perspective of, you know, how we'll be in the real world. In a real world, you have your own time and other things to do, but when you have a deadline for something, you have to get it done, and you have to make time for your art and your craft.
I'm nervous that people were gonna see my stuff, although I posted everything on Instagram, but I don't know, not a lot of people seen it in real life all at once, so I feel like people are gonna judge, but it's okay because it's cool.
Currently, I have a domain set up. So the domain is A Year in Conversation. I have the start of the website, I have one interview completed and edited. I've been given some additional notes that I might even just fix tonight, but it's pretty much finished. So as of right now, I have one interview that I could publish, and I essentially have the platform to do it. But I wanted at least 3 interviews upon first publication, so I'm hoping that by March break I will have 3 completed interviews to publish. So my Here's How You Listen experience has been incredibly positive. It's built a community of people, which already semi-existed because a lot of us did know each other beforehand and were working on art together. But I mean, I was talking to Theo 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about upcoming projects that he wants to work on, and how us critiquing each other's work doesn't have to end this February when the Art Collective ends.
I think about looking back and almost taking a little inventory of like a little reflection, a little like, hey, this happened and I dealt with it in this way, and like that made me really proud, and that was really hard, but I got through it. This is what I appreciate, and I really loved this part of the process, and this part of the process was really hard. Like kind of an inventory of looking back and like seeing what this year was and what growth happened, and like knowing that you know that that growth happened.
And maybe taking a moment to notice that, like, if you were starting again, what you would do differently and what you would do the same based on the new wisdom that you have. And also, I guess, like, what's next?
Yeah. And like how has this made you into more of who you are?